The horrifying things that were inside Cesar Milan's house were a surprise to everyone when the doors were opened. The world no longer admired this dog whisperer. It was a maze of scary secrets, locked rooms, files with information on hundreds of dogs that had disappeared, and strange tools that had never been seen in training before. Even worse, a name called Stefan Baldwin came out of a top-secret paper that no one could have seen coming. This man is responsible for killing animals in the cruelest ways you can think of. From my point of view, this is just an idea. But if it's true, Cesar Milan did more than just train dogs. He was making a nightmare that no one had ever seen before. Part 1. What an unthinkable find. A shocking discovery in Cesar Milan's home. The huge iron gate opened slowly with a creak. The tall stone walls were lit up by flashing police lights, making creepy reflections on the ivy that clung to the doorway, as if it were going to swallow anyone who tried to go through. Cesar Milan's farm used to be known as a dog lover's paradise, but now it was dark and quiet, as if someone were whispering secrets. The task group didn't really know what they were in for. Cesar Milan was praised as a master of animal behavior by some who had watched his shows. But there were also whispers. There were rumors that there was a whole other world behind the warm grins and pats on the back, seen on TV, that no one dared to enter. There was still the rich smell of oak and scented candles in the air when the cops walked into the grand foyer. Along the walls were rows of drawings of Cesar with his dogs, arranged in a way that looked like a reel of his best years. But something wasn't right. It was too quiet. "Can you hear something?" a police officer whispered as he swept his torch over the dark areas. Not a single bark. There was an eerie silence that filled the room. It was cold and hard to explain. They saw it after that. At the end of the hallway there was a door that went to a quiet part of the house. The cop tried the handle, but it was locked. The order to break it down came quickly, and the lock came loose right away. As soon as the door opened, they could smell something bad, which made everyone move back. It wasn't the smell of a room that had been left empty. It wasn't that. Something that made every nerve in their bodies shiver. The room was lit up by flashlights, long rows of rusty iron bars that were left empty. Some of them had dents in them that looked like something was trying very hard to get out. The bars were scarred with claw marks that were etched deep and scary sharp. And Cop got down on his knees and picked up a torn piece of paper with a shaking hand. There were a lot of dog names on it, not names of people. Some were crossed out, and others had strange marks on them. What did they do in this place? The room, the cop asked, but his voice slowed down as if he was afraid someone or something might still hear. They looked into another room. Cesar one, unlike the first, didn't let noise in. Over the walls, thick cloth was hung down. The ceiling was full of tangled wires that went to a bunch of strange devices. In the middle was a long table with a thick stack of papers on top of it. An officer told them to pull the curtains back. Photos stuck to the walls were lit up by dim light coming in from outside. These pictures were not normal. Each dog that was caught in them wasn't happy or at ease. They were scared. "What the heck is this?" the one person on the team yelled with wide eyes. There was a big problem here. It wasn't just a place to learn. It wasn't just a place for stray dogs to stay. There was something much worse here. As they kept going, they found another door that led to a basement. They made noise as they walked up and down the wooden stairs. It was cold and stifling, and the chill came up from below. They walked into a dark room that was only lit by the dim light from their flashlights. In the dark and stuffy air there, they found something they couldn't have imagined. A big heavy safe that is locked tight. People pushed on the door for a few nervous minutes before it finally opened. Nothing valuable was inside, just a bunch of thick files. Every file had a story to tell. There were dogs Cesar Milan taught that showed up on the show and then disappeared. Nothing, no reason given. The list kept going, and then they stopped when they heard a name. Mr. Stefan Baldwin. The air got thick and was almost too heavy to breathe. Stefan Baldwin was recently found guilty of killing at least 18 dogs as part of a clever scheme. But why was his name here? There was also a handwritten note below it that said, "The truth must never come out." What is the truth? When the last door was opened, everyone stopped. There was a room full of surveillance screens that could see the whole farm. A CD with a name written in shaky handwriting sat alone in a corner of the desk. Some video clips that had been cut up were still playing on the monitors. Claire Murray. No one could talk. Outside, the first rays of dawn crept through the trees and lit up Cesar Milan's farm, which used to be thought of as a safe place for dogs. Now, though it wasn't heaven, there was a mystery, a dark, impossible mystery, and that was the only thing that people there could think about. What kind of person is Cesar Milan? E.T. Part 2. The Hidden Places. Deep behind closed doors. The mood in Cesar Milan's house was getting heavier all the time. The scary things they found in the first room were only the tip of the iceberg. The police now had to answer a bigger question. Why did they have these hidden rooms? When the door opened, they walked into a world they could never have imagined. The room without a window. A place where light had no place. The first room they found was tucked away deep in the estate, behind a narrow hallway, as if it were never meant to be found. Not a window. No signs of life could be seen. There were only white walls and a row of metal tables lined up in the middle. The tablets were scratched, showing that they had been used a lot. There were strange spots on the floor that led to a corner with a locked small steel door. The police officer tried the handle. Not good. Someone told you to force it open. The door was ripped open in a flash. The team couldn't say a word about what was inside. There was a network of cameras in the room, all pointed at the same spot. In the middle is a metal chair with straps on the arms. The device connected to the outside world was joined by loose cables, but it was turned off and no longer worked. It was a mess on the floor when the door flew open. The cop bent down to pick them up and carefully turned through them. There were thorough notes about many dogs inside, but something seemed off. No one had ever seen these dogs before. In Milan's workouts or on his TV show, no record showed them. They were all written on paper and had strange symbols on them. Secret files and untold tales. As soon as the team cracked open the file boxes, they knew it wasn't just about dogs. Names of people whose dogs were sent here were written on them, but some names were scratched out and replaced with notes written by hand in red ink. But no touch after this. E cared for. No access allowed. What did these mean? A cared. How come these people couldn't be reached? Or were their dogs too? They kept looking, and with each page they were more confused. Images that aren't clear and scribbles that don't make sense. This wasn't a normal way to keep records. It was an encrypted file. There was a small worn-out notebook hidden in a drawer. When it was opened, it was full of rough writing and symbols that no one could figure out right away. It was put on the table by an officer, who read each page. Some words could be read. Phase 1 is not finished. We need more facts. Dog 47 has a strong response. Take note of this. GT. Dog 89. Not right. Taken out. In what way did these numbers speak? Did these trials happen? But why is that important? A confession from a past worker. One investigator quickly got in touch with a former worker who had worked at the estate. The man sounded tense on the call. He wouldn't talk at first, but after a few questions he gave in. I knew this day would come. His voice was shaking. You know. He took a deep breath and started out slowly. He worked in the back of the house, which meant that he couldn't go into some places. Doors that won't open and strange sounds at night. But then he realized something wasn't right. At first he thought it was part of the training. Some of the dogs that were brought in did not come back out. What do you mean? He didn't say anything for a long time, then sighed. It's not clear to me what they did. I'm sure I'd hear crying, but not like dogs do when they've been cooped up for too long. It sounded like fear. Following. And then I was fired with no reason given. He wouldn't say anything else and kept saying the same thing. I hope you find the truth. What was the truth though? What did these hidden rooms serve? Secret files, strange symbols, and noises in the middle of the night. It all made for a scary picture. One thing was now certain. This was no longer a normal probe. What the papers showed in Chapter 3, the forbidden files. The detectives were sure of it now. The mystery they were facing was much bigger than they thought. After looking through the secret rooms, something else was found that made the whole thing even scarier. Behind the wall of Cesar Milan's room is a safe. The thick iron door looked like it was never meant to be opened, but the team had to get past it. A professional locksmith was called. As he turned the knobs, everyone held their breath. Nobody knew what was inside. Dad. Click. The door to the safe opened. In very secret files. Flashlight beams went through the inside. There was no money or valuable stones, just nicely stacked files. But when they looked at the first few pages, they knew these weren't normal papers. Gray covers that say top secret on them. Notes made by hand are messy but organized. They were carefully kept as if someone had gone to great lengths to make them and hide them so no one would ever find them. A police officer turned the pages. The room was silent as they read, and the air was thick with anxiety. A list of lost dogs. There were a lot of dogs on one page. Each had a name, breed, and the date it was born, as well as a unique number. But something didn't seem right. A lot of these dogs had no record of being accepted or returned to their owners. They were gone. Nothing. No reason given. There was only a short notes column with broken up words like transfer complete, no longer needed, and even worse, eliminated. Get rid of. What did that mean? When an officer got to an area that was marked especially, the list of dogs was crossed out. There was some confusion about what that word meant, but everyone felt it wasn't good. Proof of studies that were not ethical. It became even more shocking as they looked into other files. Some had reports with details about tests done on animals. Notes talked about how people reacted to unusual ways of training. Sample 042 has a strong reaction and needs to be looked at more closely. Sample 078 didn't live up to the standards. Stopped. Sample 125. The experiment did not work. Getting rid of. What did these words mean? Who was in charge of these studies? Why is that? Yet another file made me wonder even more. Not only were these logs normal, they were also connected to secret study. Some stories used papers from foreign labs that talked about advanced methods for changing people's behavior. When an officer read about endurance testing, he got very angry because it talked about how animals were put through terrible conditions for response studies. A scary link to people who are missing. As they looked through the files, another strange thing came to light. Names of people. At first they thought these were just dog owners who had sent their dogs to Milan's estate. But when they looked more closely, they saw something very scary. Some names were linked to unsolved cases of lost people. The police quickly put the information into their system. The effects were truly amazing. 3 years ago, a woman who owned a dog on the list of missing people went missing without a sign. Last year, the man whose family said he had sent 2 dogs here went missing. The list got longer. There are too many names and strange connections. Why were these people in Milan's files? What did they have to do with the dogs that went missing? Was there some kind of link? Who was not telling the truth? As the team dug deeper, a strange thing came to light. Some papers seemed to have been changed. There were torn pages. Key information were hidden in blacked-out reports. It looked like the most important parts had been deleted on purpose, as if to hide something. But who? Did Cesar Milan? Is there someone else in the estate? Or is there something bigger at work? A police officer looked up at his team as he quietly closed a file. No one spoke, but everyone knew they were getting close to a secret that no one wanted to share. And the most important question was still unsolved. What was the truth? Part 4. The strange machines. Is it technology or torture? The estate's dark rooms were lit up by flashlights, which stopped at a thick steel door. This room was different from the rest of the house. It wasn't just to keep things safe. It had a creepy and mysterious feel to it. A police officer grabbed the handle and gently turned it. Lock it up. The captain told them to open it. Within minutes an expert on locks did it. When the heavy steel door finally opened, it showed a room that was much bigger than the others in the house. The expensive art and fancy furniture were gone. It looked more like a secret laboratory. In the middle, a bunch of strange electronic gadgets were carefully set up on work tables. Some were still on, and the LED lights on their screens were blinking. As the cop got closer, he picked up a small device that might have been an electronic collar. But when he pushed a small button, his hand got a mild shock. Hurrah! He jerked and dropped it quickly. The group went quiet. What was this really? A normal tool for teaching a dog or something more? There were technical files, circuit diagrams, and detailed plans all over the desk in the corner. There were scribbled notes all over the place that talked about the best frequencies, how to control the pulse, and how to change the behavior. An officer gave it some thought. This goes way beyond what people know about how to train dogs. A big antenna attached to the wall was one of the most odd things there.
No one could understand why a dog trainer would need such high-tech gear. It looked like an antenna that would boost the signal. When a police officer turned it on, there was only a low hum coming from inside. "Take it in," the captain said. "Do we need experts on this?" Other gadgets were just as strange. There was a neat row of VR headsets on a shelf, along with notes about things like animal mind control and tests for alpha waves. Small microchips are kept in boxes with mysterious words written on them, such as neural control sensors and condition behavior change. Heart rate and neural reaction monitors are usually found in medical tests, so why were they in the home of a dog trainer? As soon as these devices got to the lab where they would be analyzed, experts started to find something strange. These weren't the usual things used to train dogs. A behavioral tech expert looked at the emitter and noticed something that didn't seem right. He mumbled as he stared at the analysis screen. "This frequency is unlike anything I've seen. Could you explain?" The detective kept going. He took a deep breath as if he wasn't sure what he was saying. "If I'm not wrong, this gadget could use brain waves to change how animals behave." There was silence in the room. "What do you mean mind control?" The expert gave a nod. "It's not really power, but it could change how people feel and act. Tuned right, it could make a dog more or less friendly." The team looked at each other with unease. If this was true, Cesar Milan had gone way beyond what anyone else had done in dog training. What did he want to do with this tech? Was he trying to make dogs that would always do what he said? Or was this a more advanced way of torturing animals to make them crazy? Or even worse, was this the first part of a bigger experiment on animals that no one knew about? A lot of questions came up. Things were going too far. Everyone didn't think there was such a scary secret behind the dog whisperer persona, and what's scariest is that they hadn't even found out the whole truth yet. Part 5. The link to a missing person. A scary link to Maura Murray. A torch beam shook as it searched the dark room's edges. Investigators had no idea that among the strange things they found in Cesar Milan's house, there would be a chilling link to a case of a missing person from decades ago. They found an old wooden box in a forgotten area, surrounded by papers and strange gadgets. Its surface was covered in a thick layer of dust that hadn't been touched in years. The team was shocked when a cop slowly lifted the lid. There was more than just paper inside, and packaged with fingerprint files. Forensics looked at them and found something that stopped the probe. Prints by Stephen Baldwin. This man was not like other people. He had been charged with serious animal cruelty for killing at least 18 dogs in a brutal way. But what was scarier was that Baldwin had something to do with Maura Murray going missing, a 2004 college student who went missing without a trace, leaving behind one of the most puzzling secrets in American history. How did the prints of an animal killer connected to a well-known case of missing people get into Cesar Milan's house? It wasn't just that made their skin crawl though. They found an old CD in a locked drawer of the old wooden desk. The label was worn down, but they could read the scribbled writing in the light. "Maura Murray, keep it secret." One investigator's heart was racing. They quickly took the CD to the room where it would be analyzed. What they saw on the screen stopped them in their tracks. It had pictures of Maura Murray before she disappeared, strangely edited videos, and papers that had not been made public yet. Reports from internal investigations were in some files. The public never got the details, which brings up a scary question. Why did Cesar Milan have this secret information? The team was shocked by a short film clip. The video was blurry, but it showed a man who wasn't known standing next to an old car on the side of the road. Soon after, another figure walked up, probably a young woman with Maura Murray's build. The screen went dark after that. It was still unclear what happened next. What did Cesar Milan have to do with Maura Murray going missing? That is the biggest question right now. A well-known dog teacher who made a living by helping people connect with animals. Why would he have top-secret files about one of the most mysterious disappearances in history? Theories came up. What did Milan have to do with Stephen Baldwin? Had they worked together and left Baldwin's pictures in the house? Why did Milan never talk about Maura Murray? Why did he have these files if he wasn't guilty? Was this the first sign of a bigger plot? Someone else was behind it all.